do you feel that growing up in a relatively, compared to like the rest of the country, um, Italian American community has kind of shown you how Italian Americans are unique? So Nassau County, compared to the rest of the country, has a bigger Italian American population. The high school that we both went to, things like that. So I was just wondering, by growing up that way, did you see things that you're like, oh wow, that is unique, that from the community?
Mhm. Well, yeah, like you said earlier, like Franklin Square is very predominantly Italian. So, like growing up, like in that, the high school, like everyone's background is Italian American, so we all kind of like had this understanding. So anything that I would do or say, kind of like everyone else was doing and saying, so it kind of felt very natural. So I didn't think that being Italian American was unique until I would leave that town. Let's say, if I went out to Suffolk, or even if we would go on vacation to like Pennsylvania or a different state, and like I would see how like other people would act, and it was just like different. And I was like, am I doing something wrong? Am I? And then I would go back, when you go back home in Franklin Square, Nassau County, like, and then I would see, oh, okay, like it's just how we're brought up. It's just different. So, and like, there's so many examples that we can say about it, but depending on where you live, it's the culture of the town, and that's just different no matter where you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. You mentioned Suffolk, and again, for other people watching this that might not know, the area, um, people throw around saying like Long Island as if it's like
Hmm.
this one monolith,
Right.
but it's not. So the same way that there's a difference between Brooklyn and the Bronx or Staten Island or Queens, there's also Nassau County, Suffolk County, which are the two counties that make up what people say is Long Island. Long Island actually isn't a like governmental district. It's just kind of, people say everything on the other side of Queens, basically.
Yes. With that long part.
Yeah, but it's like, but technically on Long Island, Long Island is Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk, but
Hmm.
because Brooklyn and Queens is under the jurisdiction of New York City, that half of the island is New York City, and then our part,
Right.
the other rest of it's Long Island.
Exactly.
So I just say that kind of for people who are like, what are they
Yes.
talking about? Like, I don't know what this is. So, but no, but it's really interesting that you say that, because I always had that experience and still do. Um, Even going to Suffolk County, which is like the next county over, not to say that there's not Italian Americans there. Of course, there's Italian Americans there, but
Mhm.
it is less concentrated. It's less concentrated, so you don't, as a result, the culture isn't as,
Different. Hmm.
specific. Yeah. So I've absolutely experienced that as well, and that's not going to the Midwest. That's, it's going over
Right
local.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right here. So it just shows that like there is such a unique difference that you see
Hmm.
very quickly.
Exactly.
And I totally agree with you about growing up. I didn't realize how unique my growing up experience was because of where I grew up.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so for me, like I said, like my dad came from Italy, but a lot of the parents growing up, they're either their parents were also from Italy, or their grandparents. Um, and then also you have the mix of like the late 1800s, early 1900s, like wave, like the peak wave of the Italian American culture when you think of Ellis Island, things like that. So like on my mom's side, that's like, I call that side like the Brooklyn Italian side, where like they came over more around then, and they lived in Little Italy and that. And then on my dad's side, it's more of the more recent immigration.
Gotcha.
And in our community, that was both there. So it wasn't shocking to have a father who was an immigrant. One of my really great friends currently, we went to high school together, and her father was also from Italy as well. And it was just like, it wasn't a weird thing. It was just like, oh yeah, like that
Hmm.
that
Just
happens.
natural. Yeah,
Like
it
that
just feels
happens, like, whatever.
normal.
Um, so like that was like that was like a natural thing. And then like even things with like food and like things like that, like there's so, like you said, like there's so many different examples. And when I then went away to college though, and I remember my first year of undergrad, um which was like in New York's Hudson Valley, so not around this area. Um, and at like the big like dining hall, whatever, they were doing like Italian night. And I was just like,
Oh, okay.
what is this? Like, what's Italian night? Like, what does this even mean? And I was just like, and they were like, they were like advertising it and stuff, and they had like decorations, like Italian decorations. And I wasn't offended or anything like that. I'm like, we're a theme? Like there's like I didn't know you can go to the party store and like pick that.
We're a theme. I love it.
Like I didn't know that was like, oh, like today's like National Pancake Day. Today's Italian night. I was like, that's a thing?
Did you go?
So I didn't go because it was Italian night. Like I went because like that's where the food was.
Okay, there you go.
So it was
Now
like,
we know the reason.
but like it was all decorated. I'm like, okay. But like, I mean, in general though, prior to that, as an Italian American who loves food, like I take food very seriously.
I smell the broccoli raw upstairs already, actually. I smell it, the sausage. I'm like, where are these smells coming from?
That's so funny.
Like, look it up.
That's so funny. Like as an Italian American, that was another thing too. Was like in general, I'll go back to the Italian night situation.
Yeah.
But the idea that like the food was terrible, like the food, like the dining hall food was really really terrible, and I was like, I can't eat this. So I ended up eating like they had like cereal and like breakfast, like things like that. But I wasn't like I didn't. I was like, so I completely had to just eat like kind of very simple things. So that was like prior to Italian night because I was like, this food's like disgusting. So the same cooks or whatever made the Italian night food.
The same cooks?
Like they didn't order out. It was like the same. It was
like a kid. It's like a nice hall or something.
No. It was like just the dining hall, and it was just like,
oh my god.
I literally I want to I was just like, what is this? It was like
serve.
It wasn't even. I couldn't even. Like, what is that supposed to be? Like it was like it was things like just like pasta, chicken parmesan, things like that.
Oh, they ruined like farm. Oh my god. Please. I genuinely am so concerned about this.
Like when you look at it, you're like, that's not what it is. Like that's not. You think it is something that's not what it is. Like that's not at all. So I was just like it was just absolutely gross. And but I bring it up to say that experience had such an impact on me because it was my first year of college. I'm coming from a community in a high school that's like the 180 of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on there, and it was like it was like first semester, and it was like one of those things where you're like, oh, there is something unique about us. And I don't just mean the food. For me, it was the food in the sense of like, people don't even know my food, don't even know my culture, that they think this is good. But so it was that. There was that part. I was just like, oh, you don't know. Like, you don't know where you're eating stuff.
I guess we're spoiled. I guess we're just spoiled at home.
Absolutely. But kind of like bigger picture, what it taught me was that like, kind of like I was saying before, like, oh, like we're a theme. Like there's like this othering of like, oh, like those people, that culture. So that really was like a very transformative experience for me because I was like, oh wow, like there is something unique about me and my culture. So then on the not the flip side, but like now for you, I was saying flip side because of like high school or college.
Right.
Now that you are at college, that being said, compared to like my experience where I went like um, upstate New York.
Mhm.
I'm like, actually, other
Upstate.
people are watching this. It's not like just us, but like, what does that mean? Upstate New York, which is very
Right.
different than the New York metro area.
Mhm.
Um, what has your experiences been like as a college student, and how does it compare from a cultural perspective compared to like high school and things like that?
Right. Well, it's so funny because I know you went away to school, but for me, I knew I wanted to commute to school, so I chose a school that was only 5 minutes from my house because, like growing up Italian, like I'm very close to my family and my parents. Like, what do you mean you have to go away to college? Like, like you could just, you can go right here. So I ended up choosing Adelphi, and I see like I'll, like you said, they had like Italian, theme night. Like I'll go and like, I actually went in the dining halls once because my friend, she dorms, and I went to eat and they had like spaghetti and meatballs. They had like pizza, and like everyone's like, oh, they're like, oh my God, Italian food, that they're going like crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like spoiled at home because like my mom, she's making all these like chicken parm and chicken franchise and broccoli rabe, all these like really big meals. And I'm going here and having like pizza and the spaghetti, sauce is so dry. And I'm like, oh my God, like I just like started to appreciate like, wow, like, how I eat at home and everything. But, I see the difference, and I always say like in high school, you're a small fish in a small pond. Like everyone that goes to your school is your neighborhood. So I lived in a Thai neighborhood. Everyone in school mostly had that background. But going to college, I'm a small fish in a big ocean. Adelphi has students not only from Franklin Square, but all over the US, many different countries. So it's very diverse, all different backgrounds. So like actually going to the school and like, going to different classrooms, like I started to realize, wow, like being a Thai American is unique. Like I feel not like an outcast, but I can feel that like the way I think and how I am is different. And naturally, I tended to kind of cling to students in the class that I met that just happened to have an Italian background. Not that I knew prior, just
Mm-hmm.
by having conversations with them versus other people, we just kind of connected. And then after talking, I'm like, wait, are you Italian? They're like, yeah. I go, oh, that's why we get along so well. So naturally, like a lot of my friends have the same background as me, not because I chose to, just because, at first talking, that's just how we kind of just connected. I just happened natural. I guess because talking to them reminded me of being in high school and like of my neighborhood. So, but yeah, so I would definitely say going to college, I see it's like like you said, a 360 of going to school in your neighborhood because now when you're out there in the, I guess the real world and seeing that, there's tons of different people that have different experiences and I can really distinguish between like being Italian American versus being like just the mainstream American, so I can really see that. In high school, I couldn't see it as much because everyone kind of had that, not everyone, but most of us had that background. So it's just kind of like the norm, But in college, it's different. Like I would, bring my own lunch to school and like, I would bring like the heated containers of like leftover chicken cutlet. I would make it into a sandwich, or like my mom, let's say it was a Monday, on Sunday she had like leftover pasta, so I would bring that and I would like eat it like on the bench or something, like, before class. And like people are going to the dining halls with like getting the sushi and then getting all those other things. And I'm over here like trying to find a spot, like trying to make sure my pasta's warm, trying to eat it like outside, like, so just like something like I would do. And like people might think that's weird, but then like I had like a friend, so she grew up the same way and she would just laugh at me because she was like, I would do the same thing, like so it's just kind of like, like or during class, like I would like pick up the phone, call my nana on my free break, or I literally like was on FaceTime with my mom during my break outside because like I just missed her. Even though I commute, I still missed her, like so it was just I guess like little things because I guess growing up Italian American, like family is everything and like we take pride in like the little things. So I guess going to school I kind of like brought that part of me there, and I can just see like how much more I thought I was just thankful, but going to college, I was like, whoa, I'm not just thankful. I'm like over the moon, so proud and so grateful of my culture because I saw how like unique I was in a setting where it's not everyone is like that, So I just kind of felt so much more prideful, So you can really see the difference when you're in a different setting as opposed to being in a setting where everyone is like you. So I guess, if that answers your question, that's kind of
Yeah,
my
no,
experience. Yeah.
absolutely. And it's so funny they were saying about like being on like FaceTime with your grandma, like on your
Yeah.
breaks and stuff.
Hmm.
Like I when I so I was working and living in Manhattan for 10 years. Not that Manhattan's like that far away, but
Hmm.
it's not like right by your parents. And and then I decided for a lot of like I was gonna say for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of the reasons having to do with like what we're talking about today. I eventually wanted to move, and I was working at Columbia University, which was an awesome experience, but not for me in many ways. So I was just like, okay, like I wanna go back there. Um, and Adelphi University is right there, and that all worked out, and that's great. But the reason why I bring it up is because when I was like in transition, like in moving transition, I was like going from apartment to apartment. So like I was living with in my mom's house, and Adelphi is literally 5 minutes from my mom's house, and I was living there, and like every once in a while, like we would like go out to lunch together.
Oh, that's so cute.
It
I
was
love that.
like once a week, like
Aw,
we go out to lunch, and I was just like, I'm gonna see you later, but like,
I love
how have
that.
you
I
been since,
love that.
like how have you been since breakfast? Like it's just like, and that's just something like, and that's just something that like other people would be like, well, it's not like Christmas. Like, why do you have to see your family? Like people who are
Oh,
like, oh, I see my family for like Christmas and Thanksgiving. Like I literally don't understand that.
I don't understand. I feel like I would be so like, I don't know, like the guilt. First of all, the guilt I would
I
get.
know, I know, I know.